You are here with Senora DeVries, and we are reading Wishing Tree, Chapter 44. Early that evening, Francesca stopped by the blue and green houses. My houses. One with a black door, one with a brown door, one with a yellow mailbox, one with a red mailbox. She knocked on each door. She explained her plans for me. Both sets of parents said they understood. They would be sorry to see me go, but it would be a relief to see an end to Wishing Day, wouldn't it? And my absence would mean more sunlight in their living rooms and fewer acorns underfoot. Okay, at least let me make a deposit on the parents, Bongo grumbled. More sunlight, the nerve. How about less oxygen, people? Less beauty. Thanks for defending me, Bongo, I said. But no depositing. Samar and Stefan were not so understanding. They ran after Francesca as she crossed the lawn. Samar pulled on her sweater. You have to listen to us, Samar said. You can't cut down the tree. I can't? Francesca inquired. And why is that, dear? Because, Stefan said, panting, it's alive. I'm quite aware of that, Francesca said. It's a common trait of trees. She paused, peering down at the ribbon around Samar's neck. Why, I know that key, she said. I recognize the ribbon. A crow gave it to me, Samar said. No kidding. Smart birds, crows. Samar slipped the ribbon over her head and handed the key to Francesca. Oh, I don't want that old thing, she said, giving it back. You can keep it. It just made me remember. It's not important. It opens a diary. My great-great-grandmother, Maeve, kept a journal after she moved here. Oh, so that's what it's for, Samar said. Where is it? Stefan asked. The journal. Attic, maybe? Or no, it's probably in the shed behind Samar's house. Got a lot of old family stuff stashed away in there. She gave a wry smile. Unless it all floated away. Backyard's pretty wet right now. Which, by the way, is one of the reasons it's time for this tree to say goodbye. Samar wiped away tears. You don't understand. This tree, it's almost like it's human. That's sweet, Francesca patted Samar's head. But, honey, it's just a tree. She squared her shoulders. Now I must go feed Lewis and Clark. I can hear them complaining all the way over here. And I've got a busy day ahead of me tomorrow. As she moved to leave, Stefan stepped in front of her. Before you go, he said, his voice firm, just listen. He turned to me. Say something, he instructed. Please, Tree, Samar pleaded. I kept silent. What more was there to say? Francesca looked from Stefan to Samar and back again. Children, she said, perhaps those video games you like to play have addled your brains. Talk, Tree, Stefan said. Silence. It can talk, Samar told Francesca. Real words. It told us a story about Maeve. Francesca, for just a moment, hesitated. She looked at me. You mean metaphorically, of course. The trees seemed to talk to you. The leaves whispered and so on. It told us about the hollow and the baby. Francesca blinked. The baby? Yes, Samar said, the abandoned baby. Again, Francesca paused. Of course I've told that family story before. You probably heard it from a neighbor. Stefan shook his head. We heard it from the tree. Oh my, said Francesca. She waved a hand in front of her face. You're wearing me out, you two. I am so very glad my parenting days are behind me. Listen here, you get a good night's sleep, understand? Or maybe some counseling. As quickly as she could, Francesca made her way across the lawn, her shoes caked with mud. Francesca? Stefan called. It's just a tree, dears. Repeat after me. It's just a tree. I was wondering if we could look for that diary. She glanced over her shoulder. Maeve's journal? Be my guest. If it's not underwater by now. She held up her palms. Just no more tree craziness, you hear? When Francesca was back in her house, Stefan and Samar looked at me accusingly. Why didn't you talk? Samar demanded. Because it was foolish. Because I wasn't supposed to. Because... Looking defeated, Stefan and Samar trudged away. They hadn't gone far when Samar paused and turned to Stefan. Something happened today, she said. People at school were being weird. Talking about me, whispering, passing notes even. She narrowed her eyes. You didn't tell anyone, did you? About what happened last night? Of course not. Then I wonder what was going on. You're probably imagining things. I don't think so. I mean, I'm used to people talking about me, being mean, but this was different, Samar said. Things aren't always what they seem. Stefan smiled sympathetically. Come on, let's go check on that shed. I watched the two of them head towards Samar's backyard. They were talking, laughing, becoming friends, perhaps. Maybe I hadn't been so foolish, after all. Chapter 45. Trees don't sleep, not like people do, or animals, but we rest. Unfortunately, that night rest eluded me. I was filled with questions about the coming days, of course. But most of all, I didn't want to miss a moment of what little life I had left. I wanted to drink in the stars. I wanted to feel the fuzzy wings of the owlets. I wanted to stretch my roots just a tiny bit farther before the night was through. I wanted to indulge in some quiet contemplation about life and love and what it all meant. I wanted to philosophize. I've been thinking, I said to Bongo. There's no point in my worrying about tomorrow. It will come soon enough. Red, Bongo said. Too much, wise old tree? Bongo paused. She looked at me for a long time. Never, she said. Never ever too much, wise old tree. Bongo settled onto home plate. The world was quiet and calm. Want to hear a tree joke? I asked. Is it funny? Probably not, I admitted. Then probably no. What's a tree's least favorite month? I don't know. What month? September. I paused. Because you. Red, Bongo interrupted. As always, no need to explain. We didn't speak much after that. Turned out I didn't need to talk about life and love and what it all meant. It was enough to watch the sky freckled with stars, to smell the sweet wet earth, to listen to the beating hearts of the little ones I could keep safe, at least for one more night. Chapter 46. Saturday morning dawned clean and cool. Even before the sun made itself known, the animals and owls departed the safety of my limbs. Each family had found a new home, all in nearby trees on the same block. The skunks were going to remain under their porch. It made me happy to know that everyone would be staying in the neighborhood. One by one they nudged me, nuzzled me, whispering their goodbyes. The babies sniffled, especially Harold and Rose Petal and Flashlight. The parents tried to put on brave faces, but their trembling voices gave them away. It was awful, but I was glad to get it over with. I've always hated goodbyes. Bongo, for her part, insisted on staying with me to the bitter end. I knew better than to argue with her. By 6 in the morning, Stefan and Samar were sitting together on Samar's porch. By 7, Sandy and Max had arrived. They parked across the street and sat in their cruiser, sipping coffee and eating donuts. By 8, 3 local reporters had arrived, armed with microphones and fancy equipment. They took video of the word leave. They talked about its meaning and how it had changed the feel of a neighborhood. They also talked about me, the doomed wish tree. I didn't like the word doomed. I had to admit it was an accurate reporting. Francesca came at 8:30 carrying a cup of tea, dragging a small wooden ladder, the one she put out every year for the wishmakers. She went back home and promptly returned with Lewis and Clark on kitty leashes. They were not cooperative. And then the wishes began. A toddler on her dad's shoulders, reaching high. An old woman aided by 2 young girls. Bongo, for her part, insisted on staying with me to the bitter end. I knew better than to argue with her. By 6 in the morning, Stefan and Samar were sitting together on Samar's porch. By 7, Sandy and Max had arrived. They parked across the street and sat in their cruiser, sipping coffee and eating donuts. By 8, 3 local reporters had arrived, armed with microphones and fancy equipment. They took video of the word leave. They talked about its meaning and how it had changed the feel of the neighborhood. They also talked about me, the doomed wish tree. Neighbor after neighbor, many of whom I'd seen pass over the years. Wish after wish after wish. Scraps and scraps of colorful fabric. Many on paper tied with a ribbon or a string. A few on socks. 2 t-shirts. And 1 pair of underwear. At first, people came in small groups, or one by one. But then something changed. The trickle of people became a deluge. Many of them were kids from elementary school. but there were parents and teachers too. A dozen kids, 50, 100, and more. Every person seemed to be carrying an index card. Each card had a hole punched in it, with a piece of string looped around the hole. Stephen high-fived many of them, hugged his principal, waved to his teacher. Samar just sat on the steps with her parents, a quizzical expression on her face. One by one, the children tied their wishes to me. The principal and assistant principal and janitor and teachers all helped. My branches had never been more laden. My heart had never been more hopeful. Because as each child, as each neighbor, as each stranger placed a wish upon me, they looked at Samar and her parents and said the same thing: stay. And that's the last part of the chapter for today. Please go on to Schoology to answer the discussion post. Thank you.